These are the three simplest reasons why you might not be losing body fat and exactly how to fix it. But who even am I and why would you listen to me? Honestly, that's a great question. I'm Alex and I've been coaching people to lose body fat, build muscle and transform their bodies for over a decade now. And myself and my team have helped thousands of people get in the best shape of their life. And we absolutely love this shit. And lastly, I try to make the complex subjects and topics as simple as possible to understand. And these are the three most common reasons we see people struggling and exactly how we fix them. Reason number one, and honestly, this is probably the most common habit that we see. We've analyzed hundreds and thousands of consult forms. This right here, snacking, whether it's tracked or untracked or consciously or subconsciously, whether they're small snacks, protein snacks. Snacking is probably one of the biggest habits that we see that kill people's progress. And that doesn't mean you can't snack, but I'm going to explain here. So imagine that you just steal a few lollies from the kids' jar or whatever. You just smash some lollies you get from the servo because Sour Patch Kids are delicious. This tiny little handful here is about 91 calories. And then later in the day, you just find a little pack of mini Oreos lying in your work drawer, so you smash those. These are 102 calories. Then in between meals, because your meals aren't big enough, we'll get to that in a sec, you do get hungry, so you smash one of these little Sam's protein bars. This has minimal protein and it's 191 calories. And then later on when you're cooking dinner, it's taken too long, you're starving, so you smash a few squares of Lindt dark chocolate, which is 125 calories. So these tiny little things right here equal 509 calories. Now most people will lose a good amount of body fat if they're eating in about a 400 to 600 calorie deficit, simply meaning if they're eating this many calories underneath what their body needs to maintain their weight, they'll start losing body fat over the days, weeks and months. Now this doesn't mean that any of this stuff's bad. It doesn't mean you can't have some lollies here and there, you can't have dark chocolate, you absolutely can. But we personally find with our clients that number one, not technically, but like the less snacking, usually the better. And the reason for that is simply because of hunger, which we're gonna attack in a minute. And the second problem with the snacking is when they're not tracked, because as you can see, they simply add up and that's your daily deficit gone. Now, just to completely ditch all of these out of your diet, if it is a habit, is much easier said than done. So a few things that our clients do to really help this is number one, follow a meal plan. Because then if it's not in your meal plan, then you don't buy it. And if it's out of sight and it's out of mind. The second tip that helps our clients a lot with avoiding this stuff is meal prepping, because a lot of the time we just go grab a little protein bar, grab a few lollies, grab bits here and there. It's because we're hungry and there's no food prepped and ready to eat. So we just grab bits and pieces throughout the day. You're kind of just grazing all day. And then lastly, the third thing they do to help this is they do allow some of it to be in their meal plans, but the key there is it's in the meal plan, so it's already accounted for within their daily calories, and that way they just buy the amount they need. So let's say you do love protein bars and you love these ones, even though they're 191 calories, totally fine. If that's in your meal plan and it's tracked in there, absolutely perfect, and you know you get to have one a day, and you throw it in your work bag with you and you're good to go. Reason number two is simply not eating enough food volume. Now, food volume, all that means is trying to get more food out of the calories that you're eating, and that is simply because hunger is one of the biggest killers when you're trying to lose body fat. And if you're hungry all the time, it's very, very hard to stick to it, and then you're pretty much going to be relying on discipline and willpower all the time, which is not ideal. Now, a really good example of food volume I have right in front of me here. So for example, we have a protein cookie. Now this protein cookie has 16 grams of protein, but it also has 460 calories, which pretty much is a terrible protein to calorie ratio. Whereas this entire meal, on the other hand, is the exact same calories, 460 calories, but has 50 grams of protein. So we got more than 3 times the protein in this meal than this meal. And as you can see, look at the size difference. So pretty much food volume, all of this food sitting in your stomach, your body has to digest it. It's gonna take longer compared to this. You're obviously gonna be a lot more full and satisfied after eating this steak, chips, and salad versus the simple protein cookie. Now, please keep in mind that because obviously that takes a lot longer to prep and cook than this does, you can just grab this and go. So please keep in mind, it doesn't mean that you can't eat stuff like this every now and then and still lose body fat, because you can. But for majority, I would say 90% of the calories you're consuming and the foods that you're eating, your meals, you want them to be more high volume, stuff like this. Not only is there a lot more nutrients in that, there's no nutrients in this basically. You're obviously going to be so much more full from this than this. Reason number three is simply not tracking calories at all, or not tracking everything. Now this is what I like to call sneaky calories, and they can add up so fast. And honestly, this is so common, even with clients that have been coaching with us and they forget little things like this. So for example, let's say I'm coming over to cook that juicy steak we just saw, and I just splash some olive oil in the pan. Now 1 tablespoon, which is probably what most people would chuck in there, if not more, is about 120 calories every single time. The second most common thing that I personally think where people go wrong with the sneaky calories is sauces and condiments. Now, for example, this Heinz garlic this Heinz garlic aioli sauce. This shit shouldn't even be in my fridge. This per serve is 150 calories, and honestly a serve isn't that much. So if you're having this on that steak and chips, which we didn't by the way, but if you were, 2 serves of it is 300 calories. Now to put that in perspective, that's like the same amount of calories as a cheeseburger. I think that's actually more calories than a cheeseburger, and then, which is outrageous, right? And then lastly, the third thing, which I think a lot of people forget to track or miss out on, is their delicious coffees. Because again, it's such a habit to have your morning coffee, but depending on what coffee you get, like what milk you get, if you get sugars, if you don't get sugars, if you get those syrups like hazelnut coffees, caramel lattes that everyone loves, these bad boys can rack up real fast. So you have to track that as well. So honestly, the fixes for these 3 mistakes are pretty simple. So number 1 is we need to use the snacking tips that we covered and just simply find what works best for you. For majority of our clients, they find a combination of all 3 works the best. So like we mentioned, number 1, following a meal plan, because then if it's not in the meal plan, you don't buy it. It's so much easier than relying on willpower and discipline. Number 2 is meal prepping. Hello, Gil. Number 2 is meal prepping as much as you can in advance, because like we were saying, if you don't have anything prepped, that's half the reason we want to snack, because there's nothing ready to eat. And then of course, number 3 is simply just allowing some of it to be in your plan and in your calories on a daily or weekly basis. And that way you don't feel fully restricted like you're on a quote unquote insanely strict diet. The second fix is simply to increase your food volume. Now, like we spoke about, we want to be getting 90% of our food from high satiating foods. So lots of protein, lots of salads, fruits, veg, all the simple stuff that we already know. And keep in mind, that doesn't mean you can't smash a protein bar or a protein cookie every now and then. You absolutely can. But if you're struggling to stick with it, Zena's licking the camera. If you struggle to stick with it, then try to get as much of your food as from high volume foods as you can. And also please keep in mind, this depends person to person. Like everyone's appetite is slightly different. If these dogs don't stop hitting this tripod, then this video is just over. And simply the food volume, it'll make it easier for you to stick to it, right? Holy shit, right? Let's move on. And then the third fix is literally track everything. So track the milks in here, track anything extra you put in. If you get a hazelnut coffee, you need to be tracking that. If you're doing oils in the pan, you need to be tracking that. And just make sure that you are tracking absolutely everything you can. You'll be so surprised how many extra calories can sneak in here and there. Side note, this is also why I highly recommend that following a meal plan for a certain period of time can be super beneficial, because you can just follow the meal plan. You just literally eat nothing else that's not on there. And then that way you know that there is no extra sneaky calories coming in, because you've already pretty much pre-planned everything. So you've planned your coffees into your meal plan. If you want to cook in oil, which I'd recommend spray to save calories, you will track the oil in there like before you do it. And if you want to work out what your starting calories and macros should be, then I'll pop our free macro calculator in the description for you. You can use this as a very good guide to get started. And if you want to see what an actual meal plan looks like for one of our clients, just an average gym goer like yourself, then check this video out here. We go through his entire day of eating.